Mama?
Hi everybody, this is Emily for Help Me Mama. Today I wanted to do just a fun video about birth stories. Again, I'm getting close to my due date. I'm due August 2nd. I think it's the 14th, and I have twice come 16 or 17 days early, so I've got my hopes up that I'm coming early again, and it may or may not happen. I'm having lots of Braxton Hicks, but we'll see how soon the baby comes. But in any case, I think I love birth stories. I love them. So I just thought I would share mine, and maybe they can be an encouragement to you. There's a lot of scary birth stories out there. Mine are not so scary. So if this is your first time and you're like, I want some hope here, maybe mine will be an encouragement. Now, on the other hand, I talk about birth stories a lot, but I feel like I have to be quiet about my stories because they're good. And like my sister had a much harder time than I did, and she starts to seethe when we talk about my birthing experiences. So I'll tell you the first one, and then maybe I'll do a second video for Rice. So Owen is my first. He's 4 and a little bit, 4.5. And when I was pregnant with Owen, I was working full time, really more than full time. And I think I had my last baby appointment, or one of the last checkups, and I was still 9 days away. And that night, right after, the night after that appointment, came home. We had just set up the crib. We had just gotten everything ready in our little apartment. And I woke up probably 3 o'clock in the morning, and I felt something new. I had a couple of Braxton Hicks with him, but really not very many, and not very severe like I'm having them now. And so I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, oh, I'll bet you that's a contraction. But then I went back to sleep. And they were like 12, 15 minutes apart from 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was really able to sleep basically in between contractions, and I really wasn't worried. I would wake up and be like, oh, there's a contraction. Okay, going back to sleep. And then at 7 o'clock in the morning, I told my husband, like, I think I've been having contractions since like 3 o'clock in the morning. They are becoming, maybe at 6 o'clock they started to be closer together, like 7 minutes apart, 5 minutes, 4 minutes apart. And I said, 4 or 5 minutes apart, they say go to the hospital, right? So I think we should probably get ready. Now at that point, I was still 9 days early, so I hadn't packed a bag. I was totally unprepared. So we zipped around the house. We were like, going crazy. First baby, what are we gonna do here? Throwing things together. What do we even need? Put it all in the bag. And and because of all that excitement, by the time we got in the car, I was at like, contractions 2-3 minutes apart. I, because I'm an insane person, said, oh, I have to drop all this stuff back off at work right now. So we dropped stuff off at work. I'm calling everyone I know. I'm on the phone. I'm like, I'm having a contraction right now. Okay, gotta go. And then, whoosh, we get to the hospital. And as soon as I sit down in that hospital bed, contractions are no longer at 1.5 minutes apart. They are back to 4 to 5 minutes apart. And it was like, I got to the hospital, I relaxed, and then bam, labor was like, whew, way back. So I spent the day, and I had read, before I went into labor, a friend of mine had given me the Bradley method, book to read, and so I read through it. And that's basically the method that I used. I didn't want to get an epidural if I could avoid it, but it was on the table. I did, after 12 hours of labor, get an epidural. And because I was feeling like a cow, and I had the oxygen on too, and it was kind of funny because the first time, it was the first grandchild, it was the first cousin, first niece, first nephew, and it was the first baby in our lives for a long time. And so my My whole entire family, my brother and 4 sisters were there. My brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, everyone was there. Like my aunt and uncle came. Everybody's hanging around the labor room, which I actually loved because I just like having people around, and I liked listening to their conversation. It was like distracting, and everyone was excited for us and the baby. So it was like a party. And they would go out for certain things, of course. Everyone would leave and then come back and then chat, and it was great. But I did have to have the oxygen thing on, and my sister was really, really helpful to me. She was like looking up, what do you do for your partner in labor, and like rubbing my back and being totally helpful. My mom, Ivan, was not as helpful first time around as he has been the second couple of times around. He's gotten definitely better. So be patient with your husbands. If they don't know what they're doing the first time, be merciful to them, okay? So after 12 hours, I knew if I didn't have any pain medication, I was going to start screaming. And I didn't want to start screaming with everyone in the room. And I was in so much pain. I mean, the Bradley method is good, but you're still, that first time, it's the longest usually. Usually women are in labor the longest and the hardest with their first. And I just didn't know what I was getting into, and I didn't know how much longer it was going to be. So I have no problem with having had the epidural. I honestly think if it's your first baby, go ahead, have the epidural. And then it was kind of, it was really nice because after I had it, it worked like it was supposed to. There were no complications with it. It was great. I was still able to feel the hardest contractions when I needed to push. So it was great. And as soon as they gave it to me, it was like, I'm here for the party, everyone. I'm back. I feel so good. And so 3 hours after that, Owen was born. He came out with 1 push. And that's what I can't tell people because they hate me. They hate me when I tell them my baby's was like 1 push. The doctor almost didn't catch him because that never happens, right? Like 1 push very rarely happens. So he came out with 1 push, and it's the best. Having a baby is the best, and they put him on me, and I sang my grandpa's special song that he sang to all his grandkids. Ivan had never heard this song because he had never been around me and babies before, but it's like our family's song that we always sing to babies. So he thought it was like out of the eternal wellspring of the instinct of motherhood that this song just arose. And he thought it was this magical moment, which kind of was. For me it was. So that's, all these, it's just so special just to have a new baby in your arms, and you just hold them and love them, and they snuggle up. Now the hospital that I went to the first time, they did something that I did not like. They let you keep your baby with you for the first 2 hours after they were born, but then they whisked the baby away to do all of the weighing and blah, 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 and stuff. I did not like that, and I did not know that they were going to do that. So in any case, they finally brought him back. My brother-in-law brought me that delicious corn chowder that I love, and everything went smoothly from there as far as baby was healthy, I was healthy. It was hard to walk after the epidural for a long time, a lot longer than I thought. And I remember being home, and after a week, like taking a walk to the corner and feeling like, hey, I made it to the corner, because it just was really hard. My back hurt, and it just felt like my legs were still not numb, but not strong, So the recovery with the epidural took longer than natural childbirth did. And then the only other thing that we had a problem with in the hospital was me not knowing how to nurse. And I had never talked to anybody about nursing. I just thought it would come naturally. Sorry if you can hear my husband's making eggs. I just thought it would come naturally, and it did not. And every time the nursing lactation consultant would come in, we would get it going, and then as soon as they left, he would unlatch, and I would be like, what And they were so busy, it was like calling them back was, you know, and then you want to be able to do it by yourself, and then they always leave once it's like, okay, success, you're doing great, see you later, and then they leave and you're like, no, come back. So that was hard. He really did not, he had one bottle in the hospital. Owen did not really eat very much besides that until we got home from the hospital. And I remember that first night home, and I've said this before in my How to Nurse Your Baby videos, like there I was sitting on my bed, oozing from every orifice in my body, crying, feeling like I'm a terrible mother, half naked, and like, I thought this was gonna be a natural thing, and just not working. And then finally he ate and he never went back. And that kid was 25 pounds by the time he was 6 months old. He never stopped eating. He ate for 8 hours a day. But you almost would think, like I used to think, that he was afraid of starving because of his first 3 days of life, and that's why he ate so much for the rest of like his first year. I don't think that that's true, but it's kind of silly how that happened. So yeah, that is Owen's birth story. And there's lots of other things, like little things and kind things that people did, and silly things that happened. Like, for example, my mom freaked out more than I did because it was her first grandchild, called every single person in her phone contacts and left messages for them like this: I'm going to be your grandma, going to the hospital, talk to you later, bye. And just hung up the phone. And so my sisters who drove her to the hospital, I don't know actually, she might have driven herself. But she was hysterical. I mean, just hysterical. My mom, if you know her, you know. But so many other like silly things that I can't even remember. But I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll try to do another one for Rai Rai and Melly as the time for this new baby's arrival approaches.
Help me, Mama.